welcome back again to
Matters of the Heart.
We're so glad you're here with us again.
And we hope that what we share with you this evening will be a blessing to you. We're talking about parenting. I think this is maybe our 8th session. This is one of those topics that you really can't exhaust. There's there's just so much information, and we don't want to drown you with the information, but we just would like to share with you what we've learned over the years. We've taught parenting classes for several years. We've taught them to prisoners, and we've taught them at community centers and at churches, and so it's one of those curriculums that a lot of agencies will ask for, because that is an area where a lot of people, I don't want to say they fail, but they don't do the best job that they possibly can, because children do not come with a manual. They don't come with instructions. They we just get them. They're all wrapped up and they're smelling good, but these little bundles of joy do grow. And once they start growing, that's when we start having issues. We love them, but we want to do the best by them. And so with skills and understanding of information and having knowledge of how to raise children, we can do a much better job, because the world is getting nastier. It's getting more frightening. And so we've got to equip our children with enough information so that they not only survive in the world, but thrive as well.
So last week we were in, I think we started out over in Ephesians. I think it was 6 and 4 over there, where it talked about fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Another way of saying that is, fathers or parents, don't make your children angry by the way you behave, and instead bring them up, train them under the discipline and the understanding that comes from God's word.
Yes.
So that's where we are. That's where we are. And so let's have a word of prayer, and then we'll just move a little bit further. Pastor, you want
Sure.
to pray?
Heavenly Father, once again, we just honor you and thank you for this opportunity to share not just your word, but to share information and deposit into the hearts of parents and grandparents and adoptive parents and surrogate parents. We want to just deposit words and things that they can contain and hide, so that when situations come up, they'll know what to do rather than do the wrong thing, because we can make the mistake of damaging a child's ego. We can damage their self-esteem, and that's not what we want to do, God. We want to bring them up in the nurture and admonition of you. And so help us to impart this to those that are listening this evening. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we do pray, and we thank you in advance for it. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So last time we were talking about the concept of helping your child learn the discipline and the skill of making good decisions. And we found out that decision making is not natural. Making good choices is not natural.
No.
Most of the time, we start making choices based on our emotions and our feelings and those kinds of things,
and circumstances.
And that's just not a basis to make a good choice. And so it's really important that when you start to make choices and you start to experience consequences of those choices, you find out real quick that your experience is going to have a lot to do with the decisions you make. And so that's something, because when we talked about the brain, remember the center,
Executive.
where it's the section of the brain that makes decisions about things It has a lot to do with the moral part of your life. It has a lot to do with your character, your integrity, all of
Mm-hmm.
that. Well, that part of the brain doesn't fully develop until we get somewhere around 30, 25 to 30.
Mm-hmm.
And so here, what that says to you and to me is that you may be tall in stature and big and robust, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're operating in maturity as far as the ability to make good choices.
Right.
So that's part of the job of the parent under the survive and thrive that we talked about earlier. The ability to provide and to protect while they grow into the ability to thrive under your tutelage and leadership. We have to help them learn how to make good choices.
Right. And good choices are something that are developed over time. If someone asks you to do something that you've never done before, and they're asking you to do it Johnny on the spot, but you've never done it before, chances are you might make a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
or you might make a choice that won't turn out well. So, this is something that is developed over time. And the sooner we allow our children to make choices on their own, we give them choices. We give them two choices. And last week we talked about doing it as simply as asking them, do you want apple juice or orange juice for breakfast? Do you want waffles or do you want pancakes? And whatever that child chooses, that is the choice that they have to live with. It's called consequences. So, whatever they choose, that's something that you have to stick with. The child in the middle of the road says, "Oh, I said apple juice, but I would really like some orange juice." Well, guess what, little buddy? You're going to have apple juice because that's what you asked for. So the second time or the next time that you ask, and some parents don't even ask their kids. They just throw food on the table, and just, you better eat it. I grew up with that. But we didn't have a lot of choices when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
We had to eat what was placed in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because we are, we have more choices. There's different foods on the shelves. There's different juices on the shelves. And so you're buying a variety of things to give a child a choice. And so if you give them a choice and they choose, they have to live with that choice.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning of allowing them to make choices that they know, I've got to think
Mm-hmm.
before I make a choice. I can't just say what comes in my head. I have to think about it. And it's important because when you look at society overall, everybody is choosing every day.
Mm-hmm.
We're choosing to be angry or not. We're
Mm-hmm.
choosing to be forgiving or not. We're choosing to accept that person or not. We're choosing to spend money or not.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I don't have to spend money just because it gets in my hand. I can look at it and say, well, I got, like stimulus check. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to go out and blow it? Or do
Mm-hmm.
you put it away for a rainy day? Sometimes people just don't know how to make those good choices, and it
Mm-hmm.
shows later on in life. It shows when we become an adult and the choices that we've made are now, you know, they're following us and we want to get rid of them, but those are the choices that we made. So, teaching your child early on is really one of the best gifts you can give your child. Outside of love, the best gift you can give your child is to be able to make good decisions on their own, because you will not always be there to
Mm-hmm.
help them decide. They've got to decide. So you want to equip them with the ability to do so.
And then the other thing about choices is that remember that part of the brain only starts to kick in around 3,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't fully develop until 25 to 30.
Right.
That means that you, as the parent, have to understand that the process of learning how to make good choices comes over a period of time.
Right.
A, a 5-year-old can't make the same choices a 7-year-old will make,
Mm-hmm.
or 7 or 10-year-old, or something like that. And so it's really important to know where your child is at the age bracket they are,
Mm-hmm.
and expect the type of choices from them that will suit their age. You
Mm-hmm.
can't try to make them make adult choices when there's some adults that don't make good choices. Okay, you can't expect them to make good choices at 5 or at 7 or at 10 or even at 12. So maybe not 16.
Mm.
Okay.
If they don't have that skill in place, you're going to be a grandmother much sooner than you wanted to be.
And the reason they can't make good choices is because emotions are making the choices for them.
Right.
Here is what you and I have to understand about emotions. They just want to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care. They just want to feel good. And so the emotions are working overtime
Right.
in our children's. Remember, one they have that fight flight thing, and they just cry whenever they want something. They just cry. At 2, the other part of the brain starts to kick in where they start to experience feelings and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So a 2-year-old starts to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Or
they
pout.
are pout, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and they know they have the feeling, but they don't know what to do with that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to articulate it. They don't know how to handle it, how to control it. So they just lash out because they're mad.
Yeah.
They're angry.
And that's why children always use their body to express
Mm-hmm.
themselves, because they don't have verbal capacity at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They can only use the words that they know, and
Mm-hmm.
their vocabulary is very limited. So they're going to say no, they're going to say stop, or they'll cry, or
Mm-hmm.
they'll just, like I said, use their body and lash out. I
Pitch
used
a
to teach,
tantrum.
yeah, temper tantrums. You look at a child in a store, and the parent has said, no, you can't have that. And, the child is acting out. I have seen this with my own eyes. Kids are on the floor, they're kicking, they're screaming, they're yelling. And you don't want to run over the kid with your basket, but, the parent has at this point just tuned them out, rather than tell them, okay, you need to stop. There are some parents, and we know this, there are some parents that just, they don't know how to be good parents. And so what that child does is they act out their feelings because they don't know how to express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't blame them. We have to look at the parent. Why haven't you taught that child?
Mm-hmm.
That child can't have everything they want. They're not entitled to everything they want, because if it was left up to them, they would eat junk food 24/7. Forget about the stomach ache. Forget about going to the bathroom, and forget about throwing up, and forget about feeling bad and not having any energy. They don't know that. They don't want to know that. All they want is what they want. And I'm waiting on you to make sure I get it. So that's where a child is. Remember, they're a child.
So the first rule of parenting is consistency.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Be
Oh, yes.
consistent.
Oh,
The
yes.
very first rule of parenting is to be consistent.
Right.
Your words have to match your actions.
Right.
The next thing you want to do is tone down the volume,
Mm-hmm.
because volume says something different,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to move a child away from the direction that you're giving with your volume that makes them think you're mad or upset.
Right.
And because that changes the whole image and the dynamics of the thing. What the child has to learn, and you have to understand this about anybody, all of us. What we have to learn is that when you say something, you mean what you say. That doesn't come with volume.
No.
It comes with consistency.
Right. You can say something in a way where that child understands you. And sometimes you can just give a child a look.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's another way of doing it. You can ask them, so what were you thinking when you did that? Why did you do that? Make them think. That, remember, that brain is firing, just going, I don't know how fast it goes, but it's firing. So if you don't cause them to think, they will, that part of the brain that, remember, it's a muscle. It's a mass of muscle, and that's what it is. If we don't use it, we'll lose it. And so during the developmental stages, you want the child to use their brain. So ask them questions so that they can begin to say why they're doing what they're doing or how they're feeling. They need to know how to express themselves without using their body to hurt them or to try to hurt you. Sometimes kids will come after their parents, no, 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 don't allow a child to hit you, because if you allow them to hit you, they'll try to hit someone else. And sometimes they'll grow up to be adults that will hit. And that's another subject matter that we are not covering this evening, so I'm not even going to go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things we just kind of introduced last week, just brought up, is called when then. We call it the when then rule. And it simply means it's like this. When you do this, then you can do that. Okay, and when then, you don't want the when then rule to get complicated by volume.
No.
You don't want, because volume changes the whole dynamics. What the child has to figure out, and now here's what you need to know: they have to figure this out.
Right.
And the only way they can figure it out is by your consistency. So you give them a directive. When you do this, then you can do that.
Right.
So that, and you have to stay calm when you're doing this. You have to stay calm when you're doing this. Now, okay, so let's put this kind of back in the frame of the democratic society. Okay, so remember we talked about this big bowl full of marbles, and all of these marbles got to be in this bowl together. Okay, so all of us here in America, in this democratic society that we call America, we're all in this bowl together. Now, what we have to learn how to do in this bowl is to live with each other in the bowl. That requires a lot of skill. Okay, so what you're doing in your environment as a parent, you're teaching your child how to survive in the bowl. And then you want to add to that how to thrive in this bowl.
Right.
So what's in the bowl? Well, first of all, there's decision making in this bowl. You have to learn how to make decisions. That's what this was all about last week, making choices, and how your choices directly affect your experience because of the nature of the consequences that come from your choices. They directly affect your experience. So the other side of making choices, here's what you're providing. You're providing freedom within limits.
Depending on the child's age. So you don't give a 3-year-old a lot of wiggle room. There's only so much that they should be allowed to do, and that they should be exposed to. And as a child grows, then you give them more freedom. So what I would allow a 5-year-old to do, I couldn't allow that for a 3-year-old.
Right.
Because a 5-year-old, the brain has grown a little bit more. They understand a little bit more. So therefore, I can give them more freedom to choose. And, and I thought about this, and we've all seen it. We've all been to a store, a mall, a candy shop, or whatever. You go to C's Candy. They've got so many choices of chocolate, and you're standing there. You want chocolate, but they have so many different flavors of chocolate, so many different shades of chocolate, and you see some with nuts and you see some with chews, and so you're like, oh, what do I want? And you start off with a small bag, and then you look over here and you say, oh, that looks good, so let me put. And so they finally say, would you just like a pound? And you think, oh, sure, okay, that way you can get more. But all of us have been there at that point where we just don't know what to do. Anytime the brain has to engage, sometimes we can put it on autopilot, and sometimes we're just stuck because it's too much to choose from. I'll never forget the movie. I forget what it was, but Robin Williams had come to the United States from, I forget what country, but he went into the supermarket.
Was it Tootsie?
I don't think so. But he went into the supermarket and he saw all these different types of coffee. Now, the country that he came from, they only had probably maybe 2 or 3 different types of coffee, dark roasted or medium roast. But here in the United States, we've got flavored coffee. We have coffee shops, and so we've got all these different choices. And sometimes it causes us to go into overload, and we don't know what to choose. So when you give your child too much to choose from, you can overload them, and that they will be frustrated, and that's not what we want. Mm-hmm. What we want to do is teach them a skill, and based on their age, that's what we will give them to choose from. Mm-hmm. Not too many choices, maybe 2 or 3 or 5, whatever, depending on the age of the child, because what you want them to do is stop and think, engage the brain, and stop. Because if they don't engage the brain, the neurons will not fire, because you're not allowing them to think. And that's where choices come in. And we want to, this is a gift that we actually can give our children, to be able to make good choices.
And so in the limits area, the choices, when you give a child a choice, the choice has to be okay with you. It's got to be all right with you. You can't give them a choice that's not okay with you.
Right.
Okay, because if they choose something that you're not okay with, then they're going to discover you're really not real. Okay, so you got to give them a choice that's okay with you. Okay, and so that's critical about this. Now, so what you're doing is teaching and helping your child learn how to make choices in this bowl. Okay, now the other side of this is that you want to begin to have what we call family meetings. And this side of the equation starts to help the child understand that there are limits in the bowl. There are limits in the bowl. We call them rules. You may want to call them family rules. This is the beginning of meetings in your family begins to tell the child who they are and how they function in the family.
Right.
So the rules of the family these are rules that they're non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah. So it's important for us to begin to set up rules in our environment called our family. Your voice needs to be the most voice heard. Because if you're not heard, your child will hear somebody outside of the door. They need to hear your voice more than anybody. Now, I don't mean screaming at them, but they do need to hear you.
Right.
So a family meeting is the beginning of you being heard. In your family meetings, you always want to talk about things that are important, that define who you are.
As a family.
As a family. For example, as a family, we don't fight. As a family, we don't fight. We have a disciplined time when we do homework or things that will benefit us, like homework. Have us
chores.
Yeah, chores and that kind of. And what is that about? What you're doing is teaching your child that in this society, while you have freedom in the society, there are limits to that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in our society, we stop at red lights. At least we supposed to.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay. There's a limit to going when the light changes red. That's a rule in our society.
Mm-hmm.
So if your child never understands that there are rules in the society, they'll think they can do whatever they think they want to do. But the reality is, to live in a democratic society, we have freedom, but it's within limits. So you set up your home where your child has freedom according to their age bracket, according to what they can do,
Right.
but within limits. Those limits become the family rules.
Right. And it's important to to do this not when someone has messed up or something has gone wrong, but when things are going well.
Mm-hmm.
You want to set up these rules so that the child understands, because every part of society that we engage in will have some kind of rules. Like in the market, there's, you don't get to take a head of lettuce and walk out the door. You have to pay for it. There's a price attached to that, so you have to pay for it. And so what we want children to understand is that because of the rules, your life will go much better if you understand the rules, and if you abide by the rules. There's times when we don't just yell, we don't just say whatever we want to, because there's a rule. You don't get to hit your brother because he accidentally stepped on yours, whatever. You don't get to smack your sister because she took the last Twinkie. You know, simple things, simple things. But what the child understands is that, okay, in this house, this is what we do. But outside of the house, there are things that are done and I'm supposed to do. And, like when I go to school, I don't get to talk back to my teacher. I have to sit in my chair and do my work. I don't get to bring the ball in the classroom and, kick it while I'm, sitting at my. There's rules. Life is made up of rules. We don't always agree. We don't always like them, but they help us to get along better in society. And when children learn this early on, they learn what to expect when they go somewhere and maybe go to the library, and you don't get to shout at the person across the way. You have to whisper because people are reading. When you go to church, you don't get to say, "Hey, it's so good to see you," in the middle of the pastor's message or while the choir is singing and what have you. There are just rules everywhere. When you go to work, there's a certain way that you dress when you go to work. So when we do this early on, they understand the establishment of society. And that's the way we want to start them at home. You don't want anyone to have to correct your child, because then they'll be wondering, where is your mother? Where is your mother, young lady or the young man? I've had to correct some people that are, yeah, yeah, trying to use profanity around me. I'm like, what's wrong with your mouth? I have no problems in saying that, because sometimes people didn't learn not to use profanity in the company of other people. Now, if that's what you do in your home, I think that's not a good idea, but you need to teach what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. And you do that at home.
And so in your family meetings, it's a good place to begin to introduce what your morality is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good place to start to talk about. This is what we know. It's important that you talk passionately about what your morality is. what your rules are, what you will do and what you won't do,
Right, right.
and help your child understand as you tell them who they are.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Mm-hmm.
what children miss. They miss being told who they are.
Right,
And they need to be told who they are by their parents.
right.
This is who we are. We are a family that love God. That's who we are. And we go to church on Sundays or whatever the day that is. That's the rule because that's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We are a family that believe in high education or
Higher.
higher education
Mm-hmm.
or being knowledgeable about events in the world. So every weekday at whatever time you set is our time to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Rules.
Mm-hmm.
Rules. You can take that rule right there. This is our learning time. Say it's
Mm-hmm.
7:30 to 8:30, whatever that looks like.
Right.
Whatever works out for you, and you can always shift it in case something comes up.
Mm-hmm.
But this is our family learning time. Now, what you can do with that is say, this is the time you do your homework. While you're doing your homework, I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to read some. What I'm not going to do is just lay around like I ain't got nothing to do and have fun while I tell you to go do your homework. Remember, model,
Mm-hmm.
motivate,
Mm-hmm.
mentor, and multiply. So the child has to learn that there's a structure.
Right.
If they don't see the structure in you or me, it's going to be difficult to have influence to tell them about a structure. They need to do this.
While I'm doing nothing.
Well, I'm doing nothing.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope that makes sense.
So if you want them to be educated, if you want them to learn, always allow them to catch you reading or looking at a program that talks about education or something that's educational. And let me just throw this in. It's always good to have something to snack on, because food always brings people together. We know that. So you want to make it a fun time of learning because learning can be fun. And so once you set that up, it could be going to breakfast somewhere, and sitting down as a family. This is what we do on Saturdays. And we discuss things that are going on in the family and whether they're good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. We want to talk about these things. If you noticed a behavior in a child that you think is unacceptable, you correct the child, at that moment. You don't just wait until the meeting time, but you correct the child at the moment, and then you talk about it at the family meeting, why that's unacceptable or why that won't be tolerated. Children need to know this because once they get into society, if they haven't learned rules, you might have to visit your child behind bars. Or you might find yourself visiting your child in the hospital or the morgue to identify their body. Because the world is made up of rules. And when we don't know how to abide by those rules or keep the rules or the laws, whatever they may be, it brings its consequences. And sometimes that can be deadly. So we need to teach, but model what you teach. Don't just say this is what I want you to do, and you're sitting up with a bowl of popcorn and you're just popping corn in your mouth, and that child is sitting there doing their homework. No, turn off the TV, turn off the radio, make it quiet, create an atmosphere so that that child can learn. Any distractions will cause that child's mind to go another direction. So it's important to set an atmosphere. If 6 o'clock is time for homework, or maybe 4 o'clock before dinner, whatever that looks like. You are the parents, so you make those rules. But whatever they are, you got to stick with them.
Consistency.
Yes, consistency is key, because if you keep switching, I started to say flipping the switch, but if you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. If you keep changing things in the middle of the road, the child will be confused. Am I doing homework, or am I going to listen to what the game is on? Dad is looking at the game. I hear the game, but I can't look at the game because I'm supposed to be doing homework. Pops, turn off the TV. Hello.
Model.
Yes.
Model. Okay. So remember the 4 kinds of influence: model, motivate, mentor, multiply. So that family meeting is so important. First of all, it brings the family together as a unit,
Right.
and they start to be defined by, this is who we are. That's what you want for your family. This is who we are. We are the Flowers family, or we are the what your name is. We are this family. In our family, we don't disrespect people.
Right.
What does that look like? That's your platform to talk about what respect looks like. So that when your child understands, we don't disrespect people at home, we don't disrespect people at school, they understand that I don't talk to the teacher any kind of way, because talking to them any kind of way is disrespectful. Now, I can't tell you not to do that if I'm doing it. So,
Yeah, like if you're in the market and the checker, something was on sale and the checker, you know, did it at full price, you don't go off on the checker, because that's sending a mixed message.
Yep.
So if I say that we have to respect people, that child needs to see me respecting people, because again, you want to model what you want to see in your child.
So suppose you set up a meeting and you say, okay, this is a family meeting. We're going to talk about this rule that we want to implement, called we're going to respect each other. Okay. So as we talk about what is respect, you may want to start there. What is respect? How does it work? What is disrespect? Let me just mention a few things that are disrespectful. The first one, parents disrespect children when they yell at them. That's disrespectful. So if you don't want your child yelling at people, don't yell at them.
The most effective way, if you want your child to hear you, especially if they're young and short, is to get down to their level. Look them eyeball to eyeball and just say what you want them to do or not to do, or to stop doing. That's the most effective way. Yelling at them from across the room,
They miss the message.
they miss the message. Because you don't want them to take on the habit of doing what they see other people do. If you don't do it in this home, then you won't do it out in society. We want you to we want to set these ground rules of who we are as a family. And we take our cue from other institutions and other establishments. Now, in the recent weeks, we've seen some really crazy behavior, and that's not the way a society is supposed to behave. That's not the way people treat one another. That's not how people disrespect another person's property. So if we teach these and model these at home, then our child will understand when they go out how to conduct themselves.
So, for example, if your child yelled at you, would that be respectful? No. So if them yelling at you is disrespectful, so is it disrespectful if you yell at them. Model behavior.
Right.
Model the behavior. Another way of disrespecting a child is calling them names.
That's not their name. That's not what's on their birth certificate. You never want to. You never want to belittle a child by even saying, "Oh, you're really stupid." You would you want someone to say that to you? No. We have to remember these are human beings. They just happen to be shorter, and they don't know as much as we know. So we have to be respectful to them.
Mm-hmm. Ignoring your child is disrespectful. Have you ever been in a room and people came in the room? They came in and they act like you were invisible. That's disrespectful. If you're there, they it should at least acknowledge you. So if you do that to your child, it's disrespectful to the child. What if the child did it to you? It would be disrespectful. So model the behavior that you want. Model what is respectful. When you set up the rule that we respect each other in this family, define it. What does that mean? What does respect look like? And then model it. Model the behavior so that the child learns what respect is. Okay, hopefully this is making sense tonight. I just want us to understand, since we talked about freedom, we also want to make sure that we cover limits. Freedom within limits. So that's one of the things. And so that might be one of your topics, respect and disrespect. Uh, Overprotecting them can be disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can't do it here, let me do it.
Mm-hmm. They may not be able to do it as well as you can,
Mm-hmm.
but how will they learn unless you allow them to try over and over again? A child can't make up a bed the way you can. Their arms aren't as long, their legs are not as long, so they can't tuck the sheets the way you do. But you know, what you do is you show them how to do it and let them practice. Because children take pride in what they've accomplished, and if we don't give them uh, a task where they can at least try to do it well, we're depriving them of making good choices. Well, you know, maybe if I do it this way, it'll be better. Whatever that looks like. You know, you ask your child to clean up the room. They're not going to clean it up the way you would, but they give it their best, and you show them, okay, this is what a clean room looks like. The bed is made, the toys are put away, the dirty clothes are in the hamper, the clothes that you aren't wearing need to be in the closet. Put your shoes away, put your socks away. Show them how to, you know, arrange their drawers, dresser drawers. Yeah. But anyway, you get the point. Teach, show,
Yeah.
give an example, and then let them do it
Yeah.
to the best of their ability.
Okay, so again, the four concepts: model, motivate, remember, be an encourager, not a put down person, an encourager.
Mm-hmm.
Model, motivate, be a safe person where your child can get close to you
Right.
so you can mentor them. In doing that, what you instill in them is the ability to do it for their family.
Mm.
So they multiply.
Right.
That's what you want. You want the fact that your child was blessed to be your child,
Mm-hmm.
and you were
Mm-hmm.
their parents.
Right.
That
Right.
they learned so much from you that it affects generations to generations to
Mm-hmm.
generations to
Mm-hmm.
generations.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing more sad than when parents don't pass on their values to their children, and we've all seen it. We've all been around people that just, you know, they don't have any scruples, they don't have any morals, they don't know how to talk to people, they don't know how to do things. They're always going off. And they make it so that when they walk in the room, you want to look for the nearest exit.
Yeah.
You're ready. You're ready to leave because that person has walked in, and that's unfortunate. But as parents, that is our job, to model, to model the behavior that we want in our child. So if you don't want your child to yell, don't you yell. If you want them to use respectful language, you use respectful language. And don't let them hear you saying something to someone on the phone that's disrespectful, because then they're going to get a mixed message. Wait a minute, I thought we weren't supposed to talk like that to other people.
Right.
But I just heard you call somebody out of their name. Wait a minute, I'm confused. You're giving them a double message, and that's confusing to the child, because children naturally look up to their parents to be that person that they can go to. You're supposed to be the go-to in your child's life. And when they see you doing something opposite of what you say to them to do, now they're confused. Who do they believe? I thought I could trust you. I thought you told me the truth. So it's work.
Yeah.
So all those babies that we just fall in love with, they're gonna grow up. So we want them to grow up and be the type of person that other people will be glad when they walk into the room. Oh, there's so and so. We're excited. We're happy. Did you have something else?
No, we're just tired.
Oh, okay. All righty.
You just hit it real quick.
Well, okay, not introducing them to others as though they didn't even exist. This is my son, John. Even if John is 4, this is my little boy. This is my little prince. Give them nicknames that will make them feel important. Doing for them on a regular basis what they can do for themselves. They don't grow that way. They become so dependent on you that they become lazy. And there's nothing worse than a lazy grown person. Oh. Okay. Number 7, expecting them to fail, misbehave, or otherwise mess up. As if that is their MO. No. Look for them to do good. They'll strive to do good. Expect them to do the right thing. They'll strive to do the right thing. All right. We pray that this has blessed you, and that you will be with us next week so that we can go further into this part of our lesson. And have a great week.
Remember this.
We want your life to be good.